Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. You are listening to the very first episode of the Peace Code. This is a podcast started by the Violence Prevention Program at University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center. And specifically, it was started by a group of guys who were victims of intentional violence, and somebody like myself saw them at the bedside. We're called violence intervention specialists, and the whole goal is to reduce recidivism, to stop people from coming back to the hospital with violent injuries. If anything, we want to see them come back to the hospital as colleagues, as visitors, as friends, as volunteers. So the guys who joined us in our peer support group on Fridays, these guys who were injured due to violence, and they came back to offer their support and their volunteerism, they said, hey, why don't we start a podcast? Why don't we do a YouTube video or something to tell our stories? So often we talk about people who are unfortunately killed or murdered and didn't live, but where are the stories of the people who survive? And so today, as you see, or you will see and hear from folks who have survived their injuries due to violence, and then also you'll hear from the professionals, the medical people, the academic folks who help to take care of them, who study the issues that happen in the city of Baltimore. And so that's what our show is about, bridging that gap between those two perspectives and create a dialogue from that. Today, our episode is about loyalty and brotherhood, and I guess I failed to mention who I am. My name is David Ross, and I am a violence intervention specialist for the Violence Prevention Program, and we appreciate you just joining us today. And hopefully we can gain your loyalty as listeners as we continue to move forward. Again, this is our very first episode. None of us here are indeed professionals at doing this, but we do have a voice, and we think it's important to share. And so our show is about just being very organic, nothing really scripted, but we want to talk to the everyday people like yourself. All right. So with that, we're just going to get into the topic. I'll introduce my co-host, Damon Walker here, and he'll introduce our other guest that we have with us, Andre. Damon.
All right, I'm Damon. I was a victim of violent crime back in 1996. I came here to Shock Trauma. You know, they helped save my life with the grace of God. And so, I feel a great debt of gratitude to this place and this organization. And so I come and volunteer and do the outreach with David every Friday. For people who have been injured, and like he said, our mission is to reduce violence and ultimately prevent violence overall for people to never have to really come to shock trauma. And so today I also have my good friend Andre McDonald. Andre, he's a former offender. He did some time in prison, for a violent crime. But later on he was actually injured, not through violence, but it was a dirt bike accident, and he had to come over here to shock trauma. But now he's like a miraculous citizen. He volunteers a lot with Kennedy Krieger. He's an awesome athlete. He does like these marathons with recumbent bikes. He plays lacrosse, basketball, and maybe one of the nicest guys I know. So Andre, could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Andre McDonald. I'm 53 years old. I was injured in a motocross accident in 2004. I was incarcerated back in 1985 for attempted murder and armed robbery. And it's pretty much kind of...
Could you say what neighborhood you grew up in Baltimore?
Oh, I grew up in the Park Heights area.
All right, Park Heights. All right, gotcha.
And Damon, what area did you grow up in?
I'm a little bit from all over, but you'll see my face on Park Heights, Poplar Grove, South Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of, I get around a lot. So.
Right. And myself, I'm like east side, northeast Baltimore, a little bit of west. So I'm all over too. And and I think Dr. Cornell Cooper, he started the violence prevention program. You'll hear from him a little bit later on in the show to talk about how this program got started, what we do, and what his intentions are for the future. But he spent some time in Baltimore as well, although he's from South Carolina, but he'll talk to you a bit more about that later. And we also have Aaron Walton, who is the clinical supervisor for the violence prevention program. You'll hear from her later as well. So, Andre, thank you for being on the show and for joining us so early in the morning from, us recording it. But, you might hear this episode at any time during the day. Maybe we'll post it 2 p.m., 10 p.m. To get, so we can gain some followers from you all for listenership. So, as I said earlier, today's show is about loyalty, about brotherhood, and we want to explore what that means, specifically for Baltimore City, what it means here, what it means to people who live here, who work here. And so I came up with not a working, maybe a working definition, so to speak, or just maybe just some thoughts about what I think loyalty is personally. So I didn't grab it out of a dictionary. I didn't really do any research on it. But maybe this can give us a foundation to work off of, and maybe you guys can pull something out of it once I finish reading this and just see what you think about it. So I thought loyalty in itself can mean a pact between two or more equals. It's a valued bond that's created and expected to be honored. The relationship is supposedly impregnable for any outsiders who aren't recognized as being a part of that bond. It's about preserving that bond, and it takes priority to any other contracts or agreements or pledges that present a conflict of interest. It involves trust. It's a mutual understanding that even when not in the presence of that individual, it's expected that one won't gossip about that person, demean or bemoan the other. That individual is always held in high regard, and secrets are never shared. No one can bribe or convince one to change his mind, his perspective about the one to whom he is loyal. However, loyalty can also refer to people who subject themselves to an individual. It can mean subservience. It can be degrading, like comparing a human being to a dog even. It breeds this sentiment that the loyal person has no mind of their own. They are controlled by the one to whom they've pledged their loyalty. Some people who are loyal out of fear. Some people are loyal out of respect, admiration. Others exhibit loyalty because it benefits them. It's in their best self-interest to be loyal. The word loyalty surfaces in many facets of life. I mean, from intimate partnerships, community, customer service. So a lot of businesses want you to be loyal customers. They give you cards and say, hey, come here, don't go there. We'll give you 20% off. They want loyalty. Places of employment want loyalty. They reward you for your loyalty. You're there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They want to keep you. Fraternities, sororities, sports teams in the locker rooms, military, prison, guards, the prison inmates find sects to be loyal to. Government, political parties, you're a Democrat or Republican or Independent or Green Party. Law enforcement, I'm sure, has their idea of loyalty to their brotherhood. And one thing is for certain. Loyalty, the idea of it, at least, is extremely important to the human being. To human beings. We've seen it tattooed on people's bodies. It's printed on documents. There are symbols that represent what loyalty is. And in the streets, the underworld, so to speak, today, that's why we want to talk about what loyalty means to the people who exist as a part of Baltimore street culture. That's what we want to focus on. What does loyalty mean to neighborhoods? What does it mean to gangs? What does it mean to family members, to the individuals who reside and live here? So our first question to bring to our guests here today: what does loyalty mean to you? Damon, I'll start with you, and then Andre, you can follow up.
Okay, so what does loyalty mean to me? Now, I kind of have a different definition of loyalty than most people. I like to think that it's impossible to be loyal to anything but your own values and morals. And the reason I say that is because you can have somebody you love, that's somebody that you're very close to, but if they do something against your morals, you can't be loyal to that. You know what I mean? You can't condone it. You can't encourage it. So so loyalty comes down to you having a developed moral code which you stick to, and that shows that you're honest. So people see that and they trust you. And so that's the aspect of loyalty that I look at. But there are different other aspects of loyalty. But go ahead, Andre.
I can pretty much bounce off that the same way, because to me, loyalty is me being able to trust you, me having a certain degree of respect for you, and you having a degree of respect for me. Like I said, my dad always said, if you're not a man of your word, you don't have nothing. So for me, I carry that whether I'm in business or whether I'm in the streets. The same principles apply for me as far as loyalty goes.
To what extent does loyalty go? Like, how far does it go? Like, is there a point where it is acceptable to sever a loyal relationship on your behalf?
I mean, well, you got outright betrayal. You got, things where people do things that you feel, like I say, that against your moral code, that you got to separate yourself from. Because if you understand that you're a certain way, and you're dealing with people that don't align with your same, system of understanding how you do things, then you're going to have a lot of conflict. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's going to be, a lot of aggravation. So I would say, you could be associates with people, and maybe, you got to maybe have certain ranges of distances you deal with people according to how they carry themselves. But if this cat, he a thief, you might have grew up with him, but there's only but so much you can trust that man with, because you already understand his code is a lot different than yours.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree because, with, as they say, with the street code, it's just certain violations that just aren't, like they say, like the man laws, they're just certain rules, certain lines you can't cross. And depending on each individual, that line varies. So whereas, like with me, if you cross me about anything small, then I'm not going to trust you about anything big, because I'm like, well, if you do it about something like this, imagine something of magnitude or some kind of value. I mean, my lines are this thin, whereas somebody else, I've seen people that have gone to jail and been, somebody that snitched on them and sent them to jail, and then they still deal with that individual. So for me, that would have been like a no-go. It's like, once you cross me, that's a wrap.
Well, let's talk about loyalty. And you mentioned the street code,
Right.
and I'm curious to know, like, what is that? What is the street? Is there one street code in Baltimore? Are there several? Does it depend on where you live? Is it east side, west side? Because, and I'll say this, and I think that, you really can't speak about loyalty unless you're talking about respect as well. But even that is subjective, right? What does respect mean? Some people, if you go in their homes, they want you to remove your hat, right? Mm-hmm. Other people, if you go in the home, you got to remove your shoes, right? Mm-hmm. So with loyalty, what is it a different code, or is it a code that's understood among everyone in the street? And if that's the case, then I see it played out in different ways. But before I go any further, I just want to get your thoughts. Like, what is the you know, you said the man code, the street code. What is the like official street code in Baltimore when it comes to loyalty?
Now, I think the official street code, I mean, at least, you know, from
it varies though, because from age and time. Because
but the number one thing you hear is what? Stop snitching. You know, that's probably one of the biggest things that come out of Baltimore, to be almost like a national campaign. And you know, and so that's something you have to examine. But that's one thing about Baltimore is people are not going to cooperate with the police. People are not going to, you know, if you say anything, you know, about anything, you know, you liable to be in trouble. You know, in a lot of cases. Or if anybody suspects that you cooperate with the police, then you put on a, you know, you have a certain reputation, and you're liable to be, you know, hurt.
Snitch,
yeah, you're liable to get hurt, you know, and that's something that's a big deal in Baltimore. But then my question is, well, what things is it? If somebody hurts a child, is that okay? The speak on that, to cooperate with the authorities on that case, or say when you know, some innocent bystander like a little old lady gets hurt, you know, is it okay to speak up about that? You know, because I think that's a conversation.
Give me your thoughts. What you was going to say?
That's where the code, the code system is different, because I'm you know, I'm a little older than Damon, and I see the street code. I call it the millennial street code, which is no code at all. It's just pretty much, oh, I'm going to do me, whatever I want to do. But you know, the street code that I came up under is, you know, women, children, or you call them innocents, that anything outside of, you know, that they're not supposed to be involved. So if, just say an innocent is affected by a drive-by, I mean, we had codes that, you know, you don't get those people involved in it. And as far as like the stop snitching, what a lot of people didn't understand with that is that it wasn't saying that to the average Joe Blow. The stop snitching was basically directed towards the guys that were out there in the streets doing dirt, doing the game. So it's like, okay, well, you know, if you breaking law and you breaking law, you can't call the police and you can't tell on me about something I'm doing when you're doing the same thing that I'm doing. So the code has changed. The street code has changed over the years to the point where basically it's like every man for himself.
That's interesting. You know? And when you bring that up, I often think about you know, the beloved Dawson family whose house was firebombed here in Baltimore, and you know, even in that sense, you know, who are folks loyal to? I mean, people rep their neighborhoods. They you know, whatever, you know, the things that are important to them. So in that sense, is, you know, did they have any loyalty to that community, with the Dawson family being a part of that community, for people to speak up and say, you know, and even with what just happened recently, you know, God bless the family of the police detective who was shot and killed. There was a bartender who was killed recently, and we try to compare, and I'm just being honest, we try to compare like who gets to you know, have police to pursue and follow up on, and who doesn't. And I think in those cases, we're seeing the you know, the folks who really care about these individuals, and I think we're not seeing that on the flip side in the communities. Like, people, when every day something like this happens, to people coming out in droves as they are for these people, for those folks to care. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I mean, I just want to know.
I think, you know, that's the whole situation of, now, you know, these, like, all right, if you're from the hood, you know what I'm saying, you kind of you live in a kind of a war zone. You understand? If you're like, all right, these guys beefing with these guys across the street, shooting can happen at any time. So you kind of become desensitized to what's happening, but then you also have a heightened awareness in the aspect that anything could happen. And so, but you have people, like in these situations, maybe the detective or the guy that got shot at the gas station, these people are not immersed into the criminal element. You know, even if you're not a criminal in the hood, you're still immersed in it because it's happening outside your door. It's your friends, it's your neighbors. You know what I'm saying? You're all a part of this thing that's happening because, you know, maybe the neighborhood's an open air drug market and you just happen to live there. So for you to maintain your life, for you to maintain, you know, some aspect of feeling safe, you know, that if and I've seen this happen personally, you know, somebody might come out, shoot up the block, kill somebody, the police come around, make their rounds, and nobody can say anything because as soon as the police in your house longer, you know, inside your house, talking to you, people talking. Such and such, he was talking to the boys, you know what I mean? And now you a target. Now they looking at you. But the people who have like maybe like the police, they're protected because they can go hard and get justice because they have the guns and they have, you know, the whole authority to do certain things.
So it's like no retaliation.
Yeah, to them, and that, you know, maybe those
Exactly.
people, and maybe the guy that's at the gas station, which he's probably from a more affluent neighborhood than you know, the areas that we're concerned about, and that's where the violence is happening. That's something removed from their life, so they're not under the threat of violence. Just going to get on to the store to get some milk for the baby.
No doubt.
Your thoughts, Andre?
Yeah, I mean, he hammerheaded that because it's like, you know, when they talk about the police presence itself, it's like, you know, the people in the neighborhood, the lack of trust. I mean, you can't expect someone to come up to you and tell you about something that's going on in the neighborhood when sometimes you're the one that's in the neighborhood doing just as much as the guys in the neighborhood. You know, so that level of trust is not there at all. And the thing about, like, when I was a kid, you know, I mean, I've seen this, you know, my entire life, but, you know, the relationship with police officers and you know, back then versus the relationship now, it's like, it's pathetic. Because it's like, you know, I have friends, believe it or not, I have a lot of friends that were in the department, and it's just sad. I'm like, I'm glad they're out of it because it's like this new breed of officers that's in here. They're disrespectful. They don't know how to talk to the people in the neighborhood. They have no connection with the people in the neighborhood.
But now, Andre, do you think that is in response to, because we got new cops, because we got new criminals? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
To now, you know, and I had to put myself in the police shoes because I remember I used to be a young kid carrying a gun. You know what I'm saying? Or on the block all
Same
day.
here.
You know what I'm saying? Gun was probably almost as big as my leg. You know what I'm saying? And I'm standing out there, and you know, if something, and just I never got into a situation with the police like that. You know what I mean? But I understand how, not to say I understand it, but they're in this situation where they're coming out patrolling the streets. You know, it could be a kid, looks like he's in the 8th grade or something, and he's packing heat. You know what I'm saying? And they don't really know. You know what I'm saying? And so they want to go home to their families. They want to continue their lives, and they're in a heightened state of adrenaline. You know, and I understand, like, because even me, you know what I mean? The younger folk, the young kids, man, they're like, we called them hoppers back in the day. They definitely they hopping a lot now. You know, they doing a whole lot more than ever. Like you see, I mean, yeah, you would maybe certain times see where, you know, people get messed with downtown and things like that. But now you got straight little unruly mobs just ganging up on folk, and it's just bringing a heightened tension to the situation. So you got the people in the streets tense. That's gonna make the cops more tense, and it becomes more of a what do they call it, like a
Powder keg.
yeah, powder keg or pressure busting pipes.
But see, but my thing about that is that even, you know, from my perspective, when I was young, I was a little wild, and you know, I still had the police officers that were in my neighborhood
that you knew,
that I knew of, we still had a degree of degree of respect for them.
You're right. You knew their names.
So whatever we were doing, when they showed up on the scene, it was like, you know, okay, you shop closed.
But then what about this too? So now, all right, if you're saying that the police is disrespecting the guys in the hood, now the same way you said that they had that police and guys would talk back in the day, and I saw that. Yeah,
right.
You would know that officer, he would know you, and you would know to stay out of his way, or what? He might just look at you and you make the move to get out of there.
Right.
But what about now also the relationship between the guys that's in the community doing what they doing in the community? Because at one time, you know, you understood the respect of older people.
True.
You understood.
That's where the code. That's what we were talking about as far as the code. That's where the code came into play, because when the code was into play, we knew better. Even when we were out there serving people. If you saw somebody's mother coming up, it was like, no, man, you know, hey, how you doing, Miss Such and Such? You know.
You know what's interesting about that?
You don't get that no more.
Is that and I wish we had a millennium on the show to give a perspective, and maybe we can get someone who's much younger to be on the show at a later date to address this. And I think it's really important for somebody from that generation to be here to address this, because times are different, and they are growing up. Many of them in the inner city Baltimore, especially, where they're seeing generations of people before them, like they're serving their mothers and aunts, and not in their own family, but just generalizing
right.
it. Mothers, aunts, fathers, grandfathers, they're doing time with them. Mm-hmm. So it's more difficult to respect someone who
in your same peer group.
Yeah, it seems like they're in the same peer group. It seems like they're not doing any better than you are. In some cases, these younger people, they're taking care of entire families.
Yeah, true.
They are, so it's really interesting. Like I've heard young people say, hey, I'll get an old head to do them, to shoot, or to get somebody, or somebody who's a fiend,
right.
And in many cases, these people are older than they are. So you have to factor that into what we think about when it comes to accountability. Like the older generations, we failed them in some way.
I definitely feel that's true. We don't have any
respect there.
I definitely feel that's true because, me, I remember, being out, especially after my injury, where I had to, I was trying to change my life before I got injured, and I really was, but getting injured kind of pulled me back into the streets because I couldn't stay busy. So I had to kind of just sit and recover. And so I would fall back with my friends. And then, we got the younger guys that's looking up to us. And we telling them, hey, go do this, go do that. To the point where they actually participating in robberies and things like that, and doing criminal activity, to where, that kid that was 12, 13, 14 ends up in prison by the time he's 18. And then maybe you see him come home before he's 30. And you're like, wow, we helped mold that young man into becoming that prisoner. Not to say that we could have stopped everything, but maybe we could have told the cat, like, hey, man, play football, or just encourage other things besides, the average criminal activity, that people think they need to do to have respect in the hood, or have money, or whatever it is that it brings them, at the end of the day.
What do you think about this? Is it possible that some of us are loyal to a false idea?
Yeah.
Of what loyalty is. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think, a lot of people loyal to, the idea of that. First off, I think it comes to the black male image, and so a lot of people are loyal to an image of themselves that doesn't necessarily benefit them or fit them. Like the black male image is not something that's organically made. It's something that's contrived through the music industry, through the media, through archaic ideas of how a man has to be super masculine. He can't be sensitive. He can't have, artistic talents and abilities, because to be like a Renaissance man in the black community, to be intellectual, and things like that is to almost be called, and you know, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's like being called
a nerd,
or even equated to being homosexual, you know, and not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it takes away from the bravado that most guys want to have when they get seen in the neighborhood.
Yeah, Andre, can you speak to that though? Like the idea of what people think about loyalty. Like if you look through, like history, some of the biggest gangsters, who they would have killed anybody who broke loyalty with them, but when they get snatched, they running down the list, right? And we think of some of the
Sammy the Bull,
any big name gangster. I mean, even if it's just
even locally,
you know. So can you speak to that?
Well, I mean, like they said, when you talk about the degree of certain degrees of loyalty, when they cut like from the street perspective, it's like based off of whoever you're dealing with, because where you might somebody just hypothetically, you might cross Damon, and Damon just might not mess with you no more. He might not deal with you no more. But you might cross me, and it might cost you your life, because I'll cut. My code and his code are two different codes. You know, so it's like, I always tell people that I'm about principles. You know, so whereas, you could it could have been a situation where you could have took $40,000-$50,000 from that man, and he might have looked at that situation and laughed it off. Whereas you could have took $1 from me, and I'm gonna come see about you. You know,
because it's a principle,
it's
then
strictly about
and
the
then
principle.
There's the aspect too that if somebody knows that you got took off, then that gives the next person the courage to do the same thing, and that's what kind of happens to people. Like, it could be because the jail culture. That's definitely what happens.
Oh, no doubt.
You get the piranha effect. You find the weak one, they go in on it,
Oh, no doubt.
and so that same culture comes back to the streets, and then that's an aspect of the evolution of the gang culture, because to stop that, to make sure that I'm not messed with, now I got 50 brothers behind me that's gonna make sure that don't happen. And whatever I gotta do for that protection, I'ma do. You know what I mean? Because I hear a lot that these guys gotta, they gotta pay dues. They gotta go on certain missions.
You gotta put work in.
Yeah,
put that work in.
But
explain to the audience what work means. What does that mean?
Whatever it is, whatever chore it might be, whether it is go out to beat somebody up, go out rob somebody, or even go out to green light somebody, which is
And you earn stripes off of doing that.
You earn your respect.
And in turn
you earn your cred, basically.
And in turn you're getting that idea of what you call loyalty. Now you got people looking up to you like Big Unc
because you put that work in. We know he put that work in, so he gets that level of respect.
And so it comes back to that, to me, a false idea of loyalty, because at the end of the day, who are these people? You know what I mean? Like, I understand brothers got comrades and people they come up with, but when you start to get into the convoluted nature of gang life, you're starting to affiliate yourself with people who are not necessarily your friend. It's just that you guys, got the same flag or the same banner, but in your heart, are you really the same people?
So does that, and I think that's something interesting to me, and I think it would be to our audience as well, because you have the same flag and you don't might not necessarily know that person, but you represent the same thing. Are you held to be loyal to them as well, even if it goes against your own personal morals?
Well, you kind of sort of held to it, because if in a situation like that and as far as gang mentality, that if you violate their rules, you violate their rules or their sense of loyalty or whichever that may be, it's a price to pay with that. So it doesn't matter what yours are, because you got to worry about what the overall group's mentality is on that, or their response is going to be to it. So it might be okay with me that you violated. I just man, I'm just not gonna mess with you no more. But as far as what the gang says is, no, he got to go, so we got to put him down.
Yeah, you see a lot of those stories where people try to get away from the gang, and somebody come hunt them down.
Yeah,
You know, now I'm not personally, you know, I'm not in the gangs or anything like that. So you know, this is stuff you know maybe I read in books or seen, or like you say, talk to the young folk and see what they got to say. And you know, this is what I hear. You know, but at the end of the day, I just feel like it's the loyalty is something we want. Loyalty is akin to love. It's akin to belonging. And if you don't belong, that's just like you're ostracized. It's like you're a target. You're weak. You know, that's how people see you. But when you know you can come in and you know you get the what they call the love. You get dapped up. People say your name. You know, they give you the shout outs. You know, that's a certain cred in the hood. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's a certain power in the hood. You know, and if you don't have that, a lot of people feel inadequate. You know, and so it's like social is a mechanism to social climb, and to have you know people in your corner. But you know, like I say, at the end of the day, you might be having these people in the corner, but you're gonna probably betray your own personal code to have this code in your life.
Yeah, I think you know loyalty in itself. It goes with a sense of belonging, wanting to be a part of something, and the fear of being outcast from that. You know, ostracized, kicked out. And I think in every level of any social setting, there's a degree of, I mean, you know, people you be with every day. You know, my coworkers, to a certain degree, I'm loyal to them. You know, if you're working with somebody. And someone says something bad about that person, you're going to vouch for them. Or, you know, in friendships, you know, somebody wants you to rat out your friend. You know, depending upon, you know, the degree of what's going on, you're not going to say anything that's going to implicate that person into a position that's going to be harmful for them. You know, again, I'm assuming, but I've never seen, you know, a police officer come out and say, you know, yeah, this cop did it, that cop did it, and give names and positions. You know, even in the prison system, COs, they back each other.
Government, when something, corporation, whistleblowers.
So across the board,
everybody tries to protect their own.
Everyone protects their own. It's a very human response, I think. But what I'm trying to get at is there a point for yourself, and even I guess for anybody you know in the streets, our friends and such, is there a point where something can be so egregious that you just say, you know what, I can't?
For me,
definitely.
For me, definitely. You know what I mean? Like babies involved, you know, like innocent people.
So no matter what the
yeah, like
no matter what
like
the backlash,
that's for me. That's for me though. You know what I mean? I understand. Like I say, I have a personal code to myself that I just can't be involved with certain stuff. Now, on the other side, you see people like, you know, Free My Man. He could have just murdered the whole, you know, a whole nursing home or something. You know, who knows? Not to say that really happened, but you know, I know people. No matter what a person did, they gonna be like, yo, free my man innocent. Or you know, they gonna stand behind them all the way because that's the image you gotta have in the hood. No matter what your man did, you gotta be like, free my homie, dog.
Yeah, I mean myself personally, I'm kind of a right and wrong. It's no whole bunch of in between areas with me on that, because I mean, I got friends that have done some things. And it doesn't change how I deal with them, but it changes how I look at them. And you know, I call my like I got, you know, dudes that I, you know, from being in the industry that I was in, you know, I was a motocross racer. So, you know, it's the dirt bike thing, and I worked on a lot of the dirt bikes that you see that were riding around the city. I was working on these, so I know a lot of these young guys. And man, the mindset on some of them is just sitting there listening to it is scary. When I mean, you know, some of these young guys, you know, they got that history.
On the flip side of it, now I can't say, you know, I've befriended people that had certain reputations.
Right.
Like, yo, this dude, yo, don't mess with him, he crazy. And then you meet him, and you're like, well, this guy's
cool right.
Like, what's like? I don't see that. But you're not everywhere with everybody, and you're not, you know, if I'm not doing certain business with a person, and you know, and we just on a cool level, I don't necessarily have to see that. So I don't know about that all the time.
But that's kind of where I was going to, because, you know, I have friends, like I was telling a buddy of mine the other day, I said I have friends that I can go out anyway with and hang out with. But I got some friends that, no, you can't take them nowhere, because we call them wild cards. It's no telling what you're gonna get, and even though you know they're like that, it doesn't change that I have a degree of loyalty for him, because that's my, that's my boy, that's my peoples. He's like that with everybody else, but when it comes to me and the homies,
So let me ask you this: so in a situation like that, and you don't have to make it personally, but let's just use it as a general thing. So in a situation like that, where you have friends who you have a distance, like you know what they're capable of, you know what they've done, and if something comes up where they did something, you know it was them, and they did something like heinous, murdered somebody or something like that, the detective comes to your door, and hey, can you tell us, what's going on with this situation?
And you trying to get us in trouble.
No, that's why I say I'm just giving the general. But
I got you.
But do you give that person up?
Oh man, and I gotta tell you the truth. And I mean,
whether it's a family member or not,
like,
it would have to matter what he did.
Yeah, I would have to know really what he did, in a sense. But at the same time, I've had this situation happen, where people have asked me, and if I'm not directly involved in the situation, I don't have anything to say, because anything I can add is only speculation. You know what I'm saying? And now, but if something's happened to me, you know what I'm saying, I got every right to say what's going on, because, that's my situation. You know what I mean? But if I don't really know what went down, I can't really tell you what happened. You know what I'm saying? Unless I saw it with my own eyes. And even if I did, like, oh man, I can tell you, I had a situation, and I don't know if this is too candid for the camera or whatever, but a guy tried to kill me, and I didn't, I got away from the situation, and I left the neighborhood, moved out to the county, and so just to let things blow over. Guy was just hot-headed about something. He tried to kill me. Like I said, I got away. But then, as a man, I had to come back to the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? And so when I came back, he was there, but I ain't had no beef with him. You know what I'm saying? I was there to talk to my people, and as I was really talking to them about the nonviolence, about, changing their lives, doing something different. And as I was saying that, this brother straight up started getting in a shootout with somebody else.
Wow.
Right on the side. So he busting at this kid. The kid turn around and start shooting back. And the guy who initiated the shooting, he gets shot. So months later, this was the guy, maybe a year earlier, this was the guy that tried to kill me. And so everybody ran, and he's laying there on the ground. And so I tell his brother, like, yo, put him in the car, and I took him to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? And he asked me, like, am I gonna die? I'm like, I don't know, man. My job is just to get you to the hospital, bro. And now this is a guy, like I say, that tried to kill me. And so when I was leaving the hospital, police grabbed me, like, yeah, hey, what happened? I'm like, look, I don't know, man. I just got the brother to the hospital. He got shot. I don't really have anything to do with that. I did the best thing I could do for this situation. And it's not mine. It's because now, if I did go into details about that, maybe I do start saying, oh, this happened and that happened and this happened, and with the trade-off justice, they kicked the joint out of court or whatever, and now I'm the stool
tag
pigeon.
on your head. I mean, that's a powerful story, man, in more ways than one. And I mean, wow. let me remind our audience, you are listening to the Peace Code, our first podcast. Hopefully we'll have many more, and please leave us comments or anything or any questions that you have for us. But that right there, man, was just really powerful in the sense of that's a hard decision to make in that moment. If you had any begrudging feelings
but I was being loyal to me, though. You understand? Because as a man, I'm not going to let somebody just die in the street if I got the chance to help him. You understand? Because, him wanting to attack me was his inadequacies in himself. You know what I'm saying? And so at the end of the day, I'm a man, I'm human, you human, you know what I mean? We come together and it's just life. You know what I mean? I gotta respect that. Now, if it was a situation where Like, and the thing is, I knew that man's family. I know that man's mother. I know his father. I know his aunts. I know his children.
But let me stop you there. To that point, let's say he would have died, right? Do you tell his mother who shot him?
Well, everybody know who shot him.
Everybody know, but nobody's saying nothing. That's my point. Everybody know, but nobody's saying anything, right? So who is the who? But
that's the world.
Who is that loyalty owed to?
Charge it to if they call it charge it to the game.
His mama ain't in the game.
You're right, but his mama not. Now, all right, man, this is definitely a quandary of a situation. And then, this brother, he turned out they got murdered a short time later after his life was saved that night, but he got murdered shortly after that. So I'm sure somebody had to tell his mother who shot him, after a while, but I
mean, and for the folks listening, I'm just like laying it out there. All right, so
and these are soap operas that happen in the hood.
Because if we're looking at, all right, we're saying like charge it to the game, right? So if that's the code, if that's what it is, if that's the game, we don't talk to police, blah blah blah. If that's what it is, can we be upset when police don't look for or don't find the perpetrators who killed your man, or when we see the support, the outpour for when they lose one of their own, because that's how they get down. That's their code. Like, if we know who did it, then we talking. You know what I mean? Like,
to answer that question, right now, so just to, all right, this is a kind of a caveat to that last story. So now another one of my friends got murdered, and so I might come around the block, but because there's a lot of speculation on who killed him, his family see me, they like, no, we don't talk to him, because they think I know something that's going on, which I don't know nothing. You understand? And so what happens is it turns into a witch hunt. You know what I'm saying? To where if you say the wrong thing, it could really come back to get you. And it's sad to say that, because if I was murdered, I would want somebody to get fine justice. And a lot of my brothers that I love dearly, they were murdered, and I do want justice for those men, But at the same time,
sometimes it's a matter of saving your own life.
And what situation were they in to do that? Was they on the block smacking somebody up? Because they was moving in on their territory, and that just happened to happen. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's something that's kind of outside the realm of civil law.
It's something to think about, and I want all of our listeners to think about this, and definitely chime in and leave comments if you can, because we all, I'm sure, really want answers to this. And where do you draw the line? I had a client once who he was in the streets, but his son ended up getting murdered right in front of him, and he was going to testify. He didn't want to, but he was forced by the police to do it, to testify, and he was caught in a situation, but that was for his own, like his child. So it's like where do you draw the line? And not even if it wasn't him, like anybody else who saw it or witnessed that situation happen and they had information. Where do you draw the line? Where do you say, you my man, but you did something crazy? You know what I mean? Like you got is that even logical? Does that make sense at all, or is it just like
I understand what you're saying, but that's really kind of a tall order, because I might say something to my man about something like that, like, yo, like, bruh, you really need to make that situation right. But as far as me telling the law on him, I ain't fitting to do that.
Yeah, I can respect that.
Because that basically can put me in a situation that it's a no-win. It could be a no-win situation. Because I tell him, okay, I tell on him, and they find out that I told on him.
Because they're gonna put it in the papers.
Oh yeah, because that old witness protection stuff, that stuff is
I think that's probably the biggest problem, where people in Baltimore has been shown
documents too. Yeah.
It's been shown that witness intimidation is a problem. You know what I mean? And police are not able to, protect these people, even if it's the little old lady that you would think people wouldn't mess with. They firebombed her house. Or the lady who your situation with the bikes, they were stolen. and you know, she calls the police on the guys, and you know, some dudes come around there and shoot her up. You know, and you would think these are people that's off limits, because you understand, yeah, these are civilians. They gonna call the police.
And that's what once again that backpacks right back onto there's no code no more, because at one time they would have been off limits, but now because there is no code, they just it's like OK Corral out there. Everybody do what they want to do.
And so that's why with the situation where the officer being shot yesterday, or the day before yesterday, or was it yesterday? With that, they got that whole neighborhood like locked down. They're going door to door because they're trying to let people know we're here. If you tell us something, we gonna be here. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, how many is it gonna be months? Because I've seen people come home from jail 10 years later, like, yo, he snitched on me. We got to get him. And, you know, and maybe one of the children gets shot.
You know what's interesting, too, about that is that there's a lot of money up to find this person.
100,000, something like that.
I mean, nobody is still like, it's not worth it.
Oh,
that's
sure.
what it seems.
Because it depends on who did it.
I'm sure somebody gonna come up with it.
It's some folk out there that
you got to use it to move.
Yeah, you gonna need that money to relocate.
I mean, people do it for $500. People do it for $5,000, and so. And that's the whole aspect, that's the whole facade in the house of cards of the streets, is that everybody has this, they talking about loyalty, they got it tattooed all over them, but at the end of the day, I think it's more people that's disloyal than loyal. And,
I agree.
And you know, since we are in the hospital, we can talk about game theory. They have this thing called the prisoner's dilemma, where they say that if two people get caught for the same crime and they don't say anything, they'll both receive a very minimal sentence, maybe like a year or something, you know. But if those two people do the same crime and one person snitches on the other person, the one person who snitches goes free, and the person who gets snitched on gets like 8 years. You understand what I'm saying? And so if they both snitch on each other, maybe they get like 4 years. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's a quantitative benefit to snitching. And so even though they build everybody up as like, yo, we're loyal, we deserve, as soon as a lot of times the pressure comes down, and I've been at the police station with cats, and yeah, they come out the room like they ain't say nothing. You understand what I'm saying?
Until it starts showing up on them transcripts.
But you know they said something. You know what I mean? You understand that transpired. So I think at the end of the day, it's just a trap to kind of pull you into the streets, to be lulled into a false sense of security. And when something goes down, because it's not just about me snitching to the police. How about when I'm mad at you or something goes wrong in the streets and we kill you in the alley and leave you there?
I tell somebody else about you and they set you up.
That's the whole thing. And so I just think, you know, loyalty in the street is more about politics, in the sense of what can you do for me rather than what are we doing for each other.
Boom.
I agree.
And we'll end right there. And man, I just want to thank you both for joining the show. Andre, Damon, my co-host. I'm David Ross. You're listening to The Peace Code. And once again, this is our first episode. We plan to do more, but please leave us some comments. Hit us up. Damon, he's the social media king.
Not really.
So, you know, he'll be putting stuff out there. So let us know what you think about it. Once again, we're the Violence Prevention Program at University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center. A group of guys who were either injured due to a violent crime, or we're here to help people who have been injured due to a violent crime. And it's a small group of us, and we have a lot of supporters and allies who support. And one thing that one of our clients said to me, and I'll never forget this, is that we always talk about the people who were killed, but we never talk about those who survived and who are still living and how they're able to move forward in their lives. So those are the people we want to honor today. My respect and love to all of the people who have lost someone who was murdered in the streets of Baltimore. I pray justice for you. We'll also like to thank MIMS for giving us such a beautiful space to work in.
MIMS.
You know, they did this all like just out of love, and we love them back for that. So just keep following us, and we'll see you next time on The Peace Code. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.